So we always start these evenings with the latest evidence because the teaching depends on understanding that there is a greater reality. It's just a different channel that we can tune into with consciousness, it being the non-physical world. So I will reference several times the email that I sent out to announce tonight because it had certain topics we were going to discuss. And this is the headliner. Amazing news. One of my amazing evidence. My guides, look at this. They just snagged me. They said, stop, because I'm so excited. And we have to just tune in a little better to them. And I just do that. It's just kind of like, they just gave me an image. You know, those clasps on a life jacket. I just put a life jacket on my dog earlier today. So it's one of those little plastic seatbelt type clasps. They said that what you do too, when you connect with your guides, it's like a little clicking in. And I wasn't completely clicked in. They said it was like off kilter a little bit, the connection. So there we go. And now the words will be much more jointly shared. So just modeling how I do it, just to show you that we are always connected to our guides, but when we do it with intention, when we notice that the flow is more from the Suzanne story than joint, or more from the guides, is what I would like this evening, you just adjust the connection. So anyway, this story is one of my top wows of evidence, probably top 10, if not top 5, just because it's the latest and greatest, I think, but you'll understand why as we share a couple really big wows within the wows. So let's see, where do we begin? I live in a community in South Carolina, and I have a few very, very close kindred spirit girlfriends there. We get together every once in a while. I play my gongs for them. I'm going to play my gongs at the retreat in September because I can take them with me on the road. And we gathered to do some gonging. And as the ladies were leaving, they brought up, for not the first time, that they have a new friend who is a relatively new widow, that her husband passed about a year ago. And we know you're busy, Suzanne, but it's just so awesome if you could give her a reading. And they'd said it in the past. And I always check in, is this the thing to do? Because that always means that people who have been waiting 3 or 4 years have to wait longer. This time it was green light. Yes, time to do a reading for her. So I said, if she can see me tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock here in the house, we'll do it. So she showed up, and I hadn't met her at all to this point. And I know I have a new friend now because she's absolutely delightful. But I told her, all I know is that your husband passed a year ago and know nothing at all about him. Here we go. Well, boom, got his personality right off the bat. I just loved his whole feeling, his energy, somebody that I would have clicked with if I knew him in person when he was still walking around in a people's suit. He showed me immediately that he passed suddenly. I got actual palpitations in my heart. So it was a sudden heart attack. And indeed it was, but didn't get to say goodbye to his wife because he collapsed and they just had no idea that he had this heart issue. So right off the bat, that's verifiable evidence, but mostly it was capturing his essence through the personality. He showed me that he was an engineer, and he is. So we're getting just very, the kind of evidence that I like every time. How did they pass? What kind of work did they do? But most importantly, the personality. And as far as what signs they send, I love to hear that from across the veil. There are so many that your loved ones can send you, but this man in particular showed me, I'm flickering the lights. And she laughed and she said, yeah, one of their sons really believes that dad is still around. The other one, not so sure. Grown men, their sons. And they were saying, that, dad's around all the time. And he says, nah, I don't believe it. And just then the light next to that sun went off and went on again. So she was able to validate, yes, he's been playing with the lights. And I said, well, that makes sense from an engineer. They like to do those kinds of things. But he also showed me a bird had been bothering her. Now, if you've been part of these monthly connections for a while, you know that we've shared that those across the veil use their consciousness, merge with birds, insects, animals, merge their consciousness and use like remote control with the animal's permission to get them to send us messages. And she said, well, you know, it's really funny. There's this one little bird that's been driving me absolutely crazy, pecking on my window many times a day for weeks. I got goosebumps already. And I said, well, he's trying to get your attention. I said, all you have to do is notice, acknowledge it, and he'll go away. So this sounds like something you just say off the top of your head, right? Well, hang in. Remember, I said that. All right, there's more on that later. So it was so cool. When the reading was over, she pulled out her phone. She said, I have a video for you to watch. And I thought it was going to be something of her husband that came up in the reading. Instead, one of her grown sons, the one who's more open to mediumship, had recorded a selfie video to me. A thank you in advance. Thank you for doing this for my mom, Suzanne. Our family's so grateful to you. We really want her to know that Dad is around. We just think it's awesome. It touched my heart, his sincerity, that somebody would do that even before the reading. So a few hours later, I received an email from that same son. Mom must have gone home and immediately shared the video of the session with him. And I want to read to you what he wrote. He said, I'm at a complete loss for words after listening to the recording of the reading you did for my mother today. I have watched all your documentaries, and my mother and I have been talking about you since before my father even passed, which I found interesting. Guess what? I found out the whole family, including the dad who I brought through in this reading, had watched my Messages of Hope documentary, which is on Amazon Prime and YouTube. Turns out this dad grew up in Croatia, and the Messages of Hope documentary has actual footage from our trip to Croatia in it. So he said, you know, that's someone you could trust. And he ended up passing shortly thereafter, and then got goosebumps again, and then comes through to me. You think that's a setup? I think so. So the son continued in his email, the closure I got from your message is something I will keep with me for the rest of my life, and I'll never forget it. This is seriously one of the greatest gifts I've ever received. And for those of you who are practicing mediums or practicing to be mediums, isn't this why we do this work? To provide the messages that are healing, that go beyond giving hope to giving the knowing that your loved one is still here, and provide closure in sharing things that they wondered about, which this dad did an awful lot of. So here comes the biggest wow moment. I started writing that son an email reply to just tell him how grateful I was, to thank him for his wonderful video, and to just tell him how his dad touched my heart and how wonderful it was to get to know his dad across the veil. And all of a sudden, I got lightheaded. And I said, uh-oh, drop in. That means Dad is here. Not in the reading. Nobody going to give me feedback. I want to read to you what I wrote in the email. It's just, here I am writing to the son, and it just wrote, I just got lightheaded. Methinks your dad is here. Let me see. I see a vision of someone playing pool. Now, when I see somebody doing this, playing pool, right away, my mind says, I have never seen that in a reading. Do I trust this? So I wanted to share with all of you that even though I knew that was his dad, there's that human part of us that doesn't want to be wrong. We so want this to be right. So how do you deal with that? Trust, trust, trust. It came with a knowing. Why else would I see someone playing pool in that moment? Realize I don't see the spirits. I can't see Dad. I only sense his presence exactly like I sensed it earlier. So I'm trying to give hope to all of you who may not see your loved ones, who may not see other loved ones in a reading, but I feel him and I know this is him. And when you see something like somebody playing pool and there's no other reason for that to come in, you trust. So I just wrote it down. So I said, he's showing me someone bending over a pool table, ready to hit the cue ball. I just have to trust that playing pool means something to you. He's smiling big time. I'm also sensing a memory of a boat. He's showing me sailboats like mine in Croatia. Remember, we sailed to Croatia, but it may not be a sailboat. At the very least, it's a happy memory on a pleasure boat, not a cruise. He wants you to trust yourself. So here's the message. If his son can validate this evidence, then the message is all the more trustworthy. He wants you to trust yourself. He says you have a really good head on your shoulders. He wants you to know he is still around to share things with and bounce things off of him. I love that advice. So here's a son, even though he's on his own, probably in his 30s, late 30s, I'm not quite sure, I couldn't tell. He's saying, you can always call on me, son. I'm here, even if you just want to share something. What should I do, Dad? And I hope all of you will know that you can do that with your loved ones who have passed. He's dusting, this is the biggie. He's dusting off, I'm sorry, my guides just said, as if all of this isn't big, and it is. He's dusting off what looks like an 8x10 photo. It's that specific, I could tell the size, and handing it to you. He says it belongs on the wall. He's also emphasizing a time when you look to be about 5 or 6, walking hand in hand with him, and he says, special memories. The pride in all of you is so prominent. And I sent it. I said goodbye or whatever. I look forward. I hope you can validate this. And I sent it. I didn't hear back from him for a full 24 hours. So just so you know, I am also human. I sensed myself over those 24 hours saying, I hope that was right. I hope it's meaningful to him, even though the other side of me knew it was. So I just want you to know that aspect may never go away, but you learn to notice it, pat the ego on the head and say, you go sit in the corner, right? We don't need you. That is not helpful. We know what we know. So I didn't get upset about it. I didn't go into, oh my God, I might be wrong. It was just, hope I wasn't wrong. And it just set it aside. So I did hear back from him, and it was worth the wait. The next day, he apologized for taking so long to get back to me. Here's what he wrote. The pool table and the boat were both spot on. We had a huge pool table in our basement for my entire childhood. We used to play on it a lot when I was younger. Secondly, the boat. This one is very special to me. Here's the goosebumps again, because, you know, those in spirit know what they can get through to each of you. It's a frequency match. They're not going to show you something you would never know. So I've clearly seen pool tables that could get through. If he was showing me some sport or activity I wouldn't recognize, it would never get through. He would know, I would know pleasure boats. He says, as you know, my father was born in Croatia. I spent a good deal of my childhood on the island where he was born. It was the one thing I would look forward to during the year. Needless to say, my father and I built a very special bond during those vacations, and Croatia is a place I hold close to my heart. He purchased a boat for our family to enjoy in Croatia. We spent countless hours exploring, water skiing, and just laying out and enjoying the beautiful scenery. I know you know what I'm talking about. So here we go. You ready? My big wow moment. Lastly, the 8x10 picture. Right after I had finished listening to the recording of the reading, so notice the timing, I picked up a framed 8x10 picture, so even the size is correct, that I had printed of my father and I. So the subject matter is correct and significant. I was just sitting in my room looking at it and remembering all the great times we had together. Right as I set it back down, I thought to myself, man, I should really hang this on the wall, instead of letting it just sit on my dresser in the corner. Initially, I didn't want to hang it up because I was afraid of constantly being reminded of his death, and I didn't want it to bring me sadness every day. It's a picture of me and him side by side with our arms around each other. Do you remember what Dad said when he dropped in? It belongs on the wall. I mean, this is what I want you all to know in your hearts. Yes, they show us beautiful memories. Yes, they show us things, but this shows interactivity, awareness of your thoughts, awareness of what will help you, validation of decisions you want to make still in your lives. Does it get any better than that? It's so, so beautiful. I mean, it just leaves me glowing for days. And I will tell you that yesterday I did a reading a redo from a reading where I couldn't connect last week. I said, was it me? I'm going to try again for this sitter. And I did it again, and it was still only so-so. So I don't know what the challenge was there, but I just want to tell all of you, not every reading goes like this. We have to trust there's always a reason. We may not know why, but that's why I say that readings like this leave me glowing for days. And hopefully you will have those readings that let you know this is real. We can make these kinds of connections. And when we have an off day, trust that all is in perfect order and just keep flowing and trusting spirit. Okay. So a few days later in the mail, even though she's a neighbor, came a thank you card from Mom, the wife of the man in spirit, just to say, you know, thank you for doing that reading for me, but are you ready for part 2 of the wows? She wrote, funny thing, that bird pecking on my window all day long, every day, driving me crazy, it disappeared. I have not seen him since the reading. And what did Dad say in the reading? You know, just acknowledge all my efforts to get that stupid bird to peck on the window, and he can stop. I'm not going to stop till you acknowledge it. And we did in the reading, no more bird. So I love this. So if you watched the video that I put on YouTube last week, you can subscribe to my channel and hit the bell so you get notifications every time I put a new video up. We're doing a lot of new videos lately. This one was called Who's Messing with My Laptop? Because I was typing up these very notes to share all of the details about this session. And I was writing, so the woman's husband passed a year ago. And I tried to write the word passed. My notes are all in capital letters so I can read it without my readers. And as I typed passed, it went from capital letters to small letters on its own. I said, that's really strange. So I backed up, I wrote the word passed again, and it went to small letters. I had this knowing he was doing it. He was messing with my computer. It's not a, I wonder if he's messing. It's just, it's a flurry of excitement. I want you to get to know and look for that lift, a feeling of there's a surprise coming that welled up. And that's exactly what happened. And I had this sense, grab the phone, turn it on video, and start typing it again, capture this on video, because I knew what was going to happen. I just knew it. So I backed up over past and I typed the man transitioned. So we get past the 5 or 6 letters that it would have taken in past. We typed the whole word transition, boom, it went to small letters. He did not want people to think he was dead. It was so clear. So I backed up and I typed live. You can go online and watch it as it happened. The man is still right here. Now, I thought before every time I hit the space bar, it was going small and it had something to do with the space bar, but there are multiple spaces in still, right, and here. It stayed all caps and I just laughed and got goosebumps. So you get that, right? Is that very, very cool? So very clearly, he wanted all of you to know, and especially his family to know, I have not passed. I may have left my body, but I haven't gone anywhere. I'm right here. Now, does this mean he's not in heaven? Not at all. Your loved ones can be in both places at once. And that's the joy of this work. Like Brenda, my guide, shows me all the time. You know, she's doing work across the veil and working with us here. And there's only here in awareness. There's only experiences. Okay. So again, be looking for that sense of knowing that comes with excitement.